titled Rethinking Productivity in Pakistan, Culture, Innovation and Efficiency. Our speaker is online, Mr. Aezaz Hussain, Chairman and Founder, Visionet Systems and Chairman Systems Limited. Mr. Aezaz Hussain founded Systems Limited in 1977 as the first software house and IT services company in Pakistan and led it to date. He was founding member and founding president of Pakistan Software Houses Association. He's been a member of a number of committees and advisory bodies set up by the government on information technology strategies and on development of public sector and government information systems. Assalamu alaikum, sir. Can you hear us fine?
Wa alaikum salam. Ji, I can hear you. I hope you can hear me.
We can hear you fine.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your very kind introduction. Okay, ji. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. First of all, my apology for not being present in person in Quetta, but there were flight issues and I could not get there for the time that I needed to be there. I was very keen to visit Quetta, which I haven't for a few years. Have spent some wonderful time there. Still remember my old affiliation with the St. Francis Grammar School and was hoping to come back and visit that. So I've been asked to talk about productivity and, the culture and the innovation and efficiency of productivity. I think efficiency and productivity are interdependent, although our economist friends, and I'm sure there are many of them here, define them separately just to make our world more complicated. And God forbid, I will not claim to be an economist or sort of argue with them on this issue. But efficiency and productivity are interdependent. Innovation is key to sustain and grow productivity. So the three are linked and interdependent. However, the other element, culture, is key to sustained productivity. You can be productive occasionally and you could be productive most of the time. But to have a sustained productivity, you need to adopt the culture of productivity. I'd like to share my experience, the experience in my enterprise of our attempt to achieve this culture of productivity, which could sustain us in this, sustain our productivity. And I'd sort of then take on any questions that you have on where we missed out and how we did this. But let's first look at what are the elements which measure productivity. There's, of course, the most important one, and one which applies to my industry. I run an IT software company, is the labor productivity. And 80% of the total cost of our industry is labor. This labor, this human resource, is our plant and machinery, it's our raw material. And we currently utilize about 85% of the trained and billable resource, which by all measures is a very productive ability to do that. The second part is material. How productively do we use the material? And we don't use much material. For our business, we need space for our human resource, mostly rented, occasionally owned. We need computing equipment, and that doesn't cost so much these days. I think the individual laptop or individual computer which each one of our resources uses costs about $1,000. And of course, we use energy, but energy is about 1.5% of our total expenses. And energy has like a laptop, has a foreign exchange component to it. So, on the basis, and a laptop lasts about 2.5, 3 years with one of our employees. So if I take the total cost of energy and the total cost of his equipment, it comes to about $1,000 a year. And the average billable resource exports $40,000 of services a year. You can't have a more productive use of resource as well as foreign exchange. You look at any other industry, whether it is textile or engineering, just their plant and equipment is a huge percentage of their import. So the net export is far less than what is shown there. And then, of course, they import materials. Today, we even import raw cotton to be able to run our textile industry. And then the final part of measuring productivity is capital productivity. How effectively have you used the capital that is available to you? So, just to give you an example, Systems Limited as a company was set up on a total capital of ₹500,000, 5 lakh rupees, which is not to be laughed at because at that time it was worth $50,000. But today the enterprise value as of yesterday's stock price is 130 billion rupees. So by any measure, a very productive use of our capital. How did this happen? How did we create this ability to be productive? The one factor which ensured this, and the one factor which we adopted day one of setting up this company, was employee ownership. And employee ownership is what determines employee engagement. It is what is the key to employee empowerment. And it also naturally aligns the employees and the enterprise goals. And these three are the most essential elements of ensuring productive use of capital, materials, and labor of any organization. The level of employee ownership that we practiced, from 100% ownership of the company on day one by the original founders, before taking the company public, it was down to 25%. And after taking the company public, it was down to 16%. And the remaining, there's about 20% with the public, and the remaining is shared by well over 100, 150 employees who are the leaders of the company. So their level of engagement is totally ensured. Their level of empowerment is completely part of our DNA. The employee shareholders of the company, they elect the board members. They who are known to add value to select and to guide the organization. The board selects the CEO and the top leadership who run the enterprise, and the goals are totally aligned. The strong productivity is based on this. We have in the last 10 years, and this is public information because we've been public since then, we've averaged a growth of revenue at 36%, and we've averaged an annual growth in profitability of 40%. Today, the company is the 12th most valuable company on the Pakistan Stock Exchange. And there was one key factor which has taken it to this. Had I and my fellow founder said that we are not going to share the ownership of this company, we're going to keep it 100% to ourselves, this company would have probably run into the ground 30 years ago. Because the bandwidth to run a company of this size, we are about 5,000 people strong today. We hire a lot of people, we create a lot of skilled resources which enter into the market. This year, we have hired about 1,200 people, but over 1,200 people have left us, and they've all left us for greener pastures, for either setting up their own business or, joining others and flourishing. So on the average, we hire about 200 people a month. And this is growing every year. And that by itself requires a productive culture to be able to do this. Now, this can easily be replicated by any organization. The only issue is that it needs a mindset which believes that the control of an organization is not by the ownership of the organization or the percentage of ownership, but it is by your skill. And as long as you are skilled enough to manage that organization, you will manage it, and not because you're 100% owner. You see hundreds of examples of excellent businesses which have been set up in this country in all sectors. But only a handful of those have survived the generation gap. There are some which has done very well, where the next generation has taken over and have surpassed what the previous generation had done, but that's a handful. But if you want to create an organization, an enterprise, which is designed for perpetuity, it is not designed for one owner or one set of owners and for their benefit, but is designed for perpetuity. The whole concept of employee ownership has to be adopted. Otherwise, it doesn't work. This can be just as well adopted by a for-profit organization or for a not-for-profit organization, as long as they empower the employees, they engage their employees, and they give them the ability to lead the remaining employees in this. So it's a model which has worked for us. It has created a culture of productivity, and it has given us the growth and the success, and is prime responsibility of it. The question is, how do we create this culture of productivity in the public sector? And here, I fail to be able to give you or this audience any sort of advice or any positive thing on this. What happens in a public sector enterprise? A central authority, normally based in Islamabad, headed by a politically appointed person and advised by an officer of the Central Superior Services, appoint members of the board of that organization, separately appoints the chief executive officer of that organization, and at times also separately appoints the second level of leadership. So each one of these key people in that public enterprise are primarily engaged to that central appointing authority and not necessarily aligned with the goals of the organization. And you see examples of this. You see examples of failures in public enterprise time and again, coming from lack of engagement, lack of empowerment, and lack of the right people put in there based on merit and their ability. If you come out of the public sector and you look at the government sector, in the absence of local government, how do we engage an SHO or a Patwari or a teacher at the primary school level or a doctor to a productive culture if all the decisions are going to be centralized either in the provincial headquarters or in Islamabad? It is just not possible. Now, if there are experts, I'm sure we've heard many of them who think that this is possible, then I don't know of that secret sauce. I'm sure they do, but we haven't seen any result of it being successful in the last 75 years. So as part of the discussion, I would love to hear anybody's comments on how this can be done. So my answer to this is that government should stay away from any industrial or service sector. It should primarily look at its major governance tasks of providing the basic essential services to the people and law and order and justice. And if they can create a productive culture in there, it will be a big challenge, but it will be to the best impact of this country. So I'm not a management scientist, I'm not an economist, but I've shared with you my experience on creating a productive culture, which has resulted in the success of an enterprise, both in terms of its growth, in terms of its profit. Because remember, we are an enterprise which never attracts any loans from banks, because banks don't understand this industry, so they never lend us any money. And thank God we've been debt-free from our inception. So all our growth has been through productive use of our capital and being profitable from day one and being able to reinvest our profits into the company. So if you have any questions on the experience that I've shared with you, I'd love to sort of expand on that and respond to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Aezaz. Lovely, very good presentation. All the Balochis here will be very happy to hear that you have a partial Balochi background. Aezaz got educated in the grammar school in Quetta, before going to grammar school of Karachi, and then finally coming to Lahore and getting a good education in Lahore. But nevertheless, he's been there. But Aezaz, this is great. So please, Baloch students, whoever wants to raise a question, please raise your hands. While you're thinking about raising your hand, let me just ask Aezaz a couple of questions. One is, as you said, you are a very labor-intensive company. But you're not just an ordinary labor-intensive company. You hire educated people, and you're looking for talent, basically. What is your experience of finding talent in Pakistan, and how do you actually find talent? The difficulty that we find here, especially in universities and others, our recruitment policies are so flawed, especially in the government sector. We find it very hard to find talent. You have to go through interviews, through advertisements, etc. What is your experience with finding talent? And then how do you train them to be internationally competitive? After all, you are in a direct export business where you have no government subsidy and you have to be internationally competitive. So is that the reason that, for example, you have a large overseas presence? And have you relied more on your overseas presence or the Pakistani presence? So I really want you to focus on the human capital issue.
You know, that's the most important issue for us, Dr. Nadeem. We are all about human capital. It's the raw talent is always available. It's creating the ability to recognize it, to give it the opportunity. And it's also the brand that you create. If the market knows that there is an organization where if I have a talent, I will grow into it. I will grow in that organization. You attract much better quality of people. It's the branding of the organization. For instance, my current CEO is somebody who joined straight from college. He's been running the company for the last 8-10 years. And has done a great job, and he's successful. And he knows that he didn't have to compete against any relative of mine or against a relative of any other founder, that the company was his. He's today the third largest shareholder of the company. Now, the very fact that when he goes out to hire and he tells his story attracts the best talent. So you got to create a brand for yourself. And universities, I don't think, work hard enough on creating that brand, of convincing people that you will come here and you will grow on merit, and we have that brand for you. They have the ability to do so. The second part of your question, you know, it's investment. For the first year that a person spends with us, there is almost no earning from that person. It's an expense, and there's a lot of extra expense of training that person, of polishing that person, of taking him or her to the level where they can compete at an international level. We don't depend on international talent. Even in our target markets, like in the US or Europe or Middle East or Africa, and we are even present in the Asia Pacific region, 90% of the staff that we have there are people who've gone from here. They moved from the parent company. Maybe about 10% of the people who are doing the sales or the account management are locally hired. So people see that, and that creates a brand, and that creates the attraction. But the investment has to be very heavy. So if we are about 6,000 people, less than 4,000 are billed, and they pay for the other 2,000 plus the profit of the company. And you've got to sort of structure it around that.
Ji, Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
Your whole, my name is Yasir Ishfaq ji. I'm CEO of Pakistan Microfinance Investment Company. So one of the comments which was very interesting जो आपने किया कि not for profit entities में तो ownership create कर सकते हैं, but not for profit entities में जो कि इस वक्त हमें बड़ा एक major issue नजर आता है, because the not for profit entities can't pay dividends और शेयर की अप्रिसिएशन भी कोई नहीं हो सकती उस लिहाज से. तो वहां पे कैसे मैं आपसे जानना चाहूंगा, how do you what's your opinion of creating ownership? I know motivation and everything is fine, but how do you actually create ownership in a not-for-profit entity? Thank you.
You see, Yasir, it's not just a matter of creating ownership. You've got to engage the employee, and you've got to empower them in the decision-making process. That they should know that I matter, that my decisions matter, and I am running this organization or part of this organization. And you know, when somebody is engaged, they are happier in their work, and they're doing something which they enjoy, they will always excel in that work. And when they excel, they're more productive. So it's not simply, don't engage or empower an employee by giving them dividends or giving them ownership of the company or raising their value of their asset. You empower them also by aligning their goals. You empower them by making them feel that yes, and they know that if when the time comes, I'll be the next person who will be promoted into the next position. I will be running this organization. I am competing for the leadership of this organization, and it's not going to move to somebody else from outside. So that's the level of engagement which empowers them, and that's when they shine, and that's when they excel, and that's when they're producing.
Can't let you get away without commenting on the state of human capital that you get. You made a pitch that you're getting good human capital and that you train them, etc. So fair enough. But tell us, we've got 260 universities, of which I'm a part too, and we send out, I think, maybe 1 million students into the market every year. How do you rate our university system, and what are your comments on our university system? What should we do if you think our human capital is adequate? That's great, wonderful news. If you think there's changes to be made, what do you think should be done?
Well, human capital is adequate if you're hiring 2,500 people a year. If I was to at 100,000 people, it'll probably will have an adequacy problem. So I am in my comfort zone from that point of view. What the university should do, and I have been, you see, our industry has a natural affiliation and a natural need to collaborate with universities. So we've always sort of extended some hand of collaboration with them. Unfortunately, we don't get the response that we are looking for. For instance, at one of the universities who had invited me to discuss their R&D and their research department and their plans, etc., I proposed that while you send your students to intern in our organization, and the individual student who comes and interns does gain something from that internship of 2 months or 3 months, I would really request that some of the faculty members should come and intern with us. Now, this was initially accepted with horrified response. I mean, what can you teach us faculty? I'm not teaching them anything. I'm just exposing them to what is happening in the market so they can expose the whole class rather than sending 2 people and interns here. I'm also suggesting that because we will learn from them, because they bring a theoretical capability behind anything that we do, which gives us the strength. We are sitting in the trenches out there fighting, you know, a war. Some client says, I want this done and I want this done tomorrow. So we come up with the best way that we can do it as quickly as possible, and we have to make money on it. But a theoretically sound person, an academic, sitting at that could give us alternate ways of doing it. So there is a two-way thing here. It's just a mindset that somebody who's become a faculty member thinks that the learning is now behind me. And I can't learn anything from the industry. So I think that level of collaboration, that level of engagement between business, and this applies to every industry, whether it's the chemical industry or the engineering one or the IT industry or agriculture or whatever, there has to be far greater engagement between faculty and the actual practical side of what they're teaching.
Assalamu alaikum. Aezaz sahab, it's a pleasure to listen to you. My name is Khurram Shahzad. Sir, एक छोटी सी investment banking boutique firm run करता हूँ मैं. A sort of entrepreneur, and I look up to people like you who actually, you know, run the information technology landscape of the country. Congratulations, Systems Limited has done, you know, tremendously well over the last few years, and I was luckily involved in the IPO also when I was with this brokerage firm who actually done your IPO. तो सर मेरा सवाल ये है कि जो अभी नदीम साहब ने भी बात की है, I've heard we produce about 30,000 IT graduates every year, and out of those only 5,000 are employable. तो सर अगर 5,000 सिर्फ employable हैं, तो एक तो ये सवाल है कि हम क्या produce कर रहे हैं. Secondly, with this sort of human resource, I mean, this scarce human resource, how are we going to become next Infosys of the world and, you know, Reliances of the world? And, you know, if you look at next door, India, तो वो तो एक single company आपकी $100 billion की है, और एक startup वहाँ पे value हो रहा है $12 billion. Systems Limited, despite being the top company in Pakistan, has got what market cap is about $600 million. तो सर ये तो बड़ा impediment है. इस पे आपने सोचा है कि हम कैसे $600 million से $6 billion कंपनी बन सकते हैं in the next, let's say, a year or two? तो सर ये मेरे कुछ comments भी थे और सवाल भी हैं.
Good question, Aezaz sahab. इसमें ये भी मैं ऐड कर दूं कि please tell us how do you feel competing with India? Since you're the leading edge of our technology sector, we would like to know how do you feel about us competing with India, and the fact कि हम dream करते रहते हैं कि हमारी exports भी 100 billion, 50 billion हो जाएंगी IT की. Is that possible?
Khurram, thank you, and Nadeem, you know, we've been flirting or romancing with IT becoming a major source of foreign exchange earner for some years, particularly in Islamabad. The impediment, Khurram, is not the resource. And I'll tell you historically how we handled it, and we will always continue to handle. The impediment is the how should I put it? It's the statutory, or it's the regulatory framework in Pakistan. That is the real impediment. I can make a plan for a company to grow to be $1 billion company in 5 years, like they do in India. But for that, I need a regulatory framework which allows me to go and expand my export services worldwide. As I said, today, we are spending 3% of our total export value on import. A textile company spends, all told, about 30 to 40%. When I go to the State Bank and say, look, I'm operating in Europe, I need to buy a company for $20 million, which will enhance the amount of revenue coming to me. I'm buying that revenue. I want to pay them 20 million, and I will double the size of that company because I'll be offering them the back office that I have in Pakistan. The State Bank can say, you can't even take a rupee. It has taken me 40 years to finally convince them to allow me to spend 10% of the average of my last 3 years export for investment abroad. Look at the Indian side. Look at their regulatory framework on this. The Indian equivalent to State Bank, what's it called? Whatever it's called. allows an Indian IT company to invest 4 times their enterprise value or $1 billion, whichever is less, for investment in their target market without seeking government approval. अगर मैं $100 million की इन्वेस्टमेंट एक्सपोर्ट कर रहा हूं तो मुझे पिछले 3 साल के एवरेज लेके $7 million, $8 million की मुझे इन्वेस्टमेंट की अपॉर्चुनिटी इस वक्त है। अगर मैं 10 पे जाना चाहता हूं तो मुझे इस्लामाबाद नदीम साहब के साथ मिलके वो आपकी जो है एक्निक में जाना पड़ता है, जहां से मुझे कभी आंसर ही नहीं मिल सकता। So you know, these are the impediments. I see Shahid Kardar sitting next to you, and he will bear me out. When we started Systems Limited, and he was one of my pioneers at that time, there was no computer science course in Pakistan. There was not a single college or university which taught computer science. एक होता था इस्लामाबाद यूनिवर्सिटी में, वो 1 साल का मास्टर्स डिग्री देते थे टू पोस्ट ग्रेजुएट डिग्री इन कंप्यूटर साइंस, जिसमें 15 स्टूडेंट होते थे. So we used to create our resources. We used to hire engineers, MBAs, accountants, and we could teach them computers. ये तो आजकल इंडस्ट्री स्पॉइल हो गई है कि वो कहते हैं जी 5,000 एम्प्लॉयबल हैं. All 30,000 are employable if you spend some money and make them billable. So it's wrong to say कि जी सिर्फ 10-15% employable है. All of them are employable. So you just need to invest in them. You need to create that, take them to the level where they can compete internationally. इंडिया में क्या होता रहा है, जब ये शुरू में इंडस्ट्री शुरू हुई थी, the large companies, because they didn't have enough, they would go to an engineering school and take second-year students and tell them, छोड़ दो, degree छोड़ दो. Come and join our institute. We'll spend 6 months teaching you about IT, and you will be immediately employed up during that time. So there are ways of overcoming the and resource. आपने अभी आपका एक speaker कह रहा था 75%, आप ही कह रहे थे पूरा 75% of our people are below the age of 35. So we have started a program. We started it primarily aiming at improving our gender ratio. We are asking women who have any degree, and we are saying, come for 6 months into our training program, and we will retrain you into IT. We had 2,000 people applying. हमने 100 बंदा उसमें से लिया because that is our capacity of training there. We will expand this. We are offering this to other universities कि आप हमारे साथ ये program करें. Let's get mid-career people who want to pivot to IT, and let's train them.
True, sir. बस एक मेरा follow-up point है. Systems ने of course out of the way जाके कुछ अच्छे काम किए इस तरह के जो कि हमारी मार्केट में नहीं हो रहे. वैसे तो ओवरऑल एक अच्छा प्लेटफॉर्म जो है वो क्रिएट किया आप लोगों ने. एक वेंचर कैपिटल का आपका बड़ा अच्छा इनिशिएटिव आया मार्केट में, जिससे आपने वेंचर स्टार्टअप्स में इन्वेस्टमेंट शुरू की. आई थिंक सारी आईटी कंपनीज को, इनफैक्ट सारी कंपनीज को ये करना चाहिए कि एक कैपिटल प्रोवाइड करें अर्ली स्टेज कंपनीज को, ताकि वो आगे आए, बड़ी हों, और फिर आप इवेंचुअली या तो उनको एक्वायर कर लें या फिर आगे लेके जाएं. ये दुनिया में मॉडल्स फॉलो करें. सेकेंडली, आपने अभी जो एक्विजिशंस की हैं, जैसे अभी आपने एक सिंगापुर में आई थिंक कंपनी एक्वायर की है थ्रू योर आई थिंक यूएई ऑफिस. सर, तो ये पॉसिबल है ना कि आप ये कर सकें कि आप ओवरसीज अपने टू ओवरकम दिस रेगुलेटरी हर्डल, आप या एक्सचेंज फ्लोज का जो इशू है वो तो पूरी इकोनॉमी फेस कर रही है ना, आपको पता है, सारे इन्वेस्टर्स फेस कर रहे हैं, उसी वजह से हमारे पास इन्वेस्टमेंट नहीं आ रही. तो आप ओवरसीज ऑफिसेस क्रिएट करें और वहां से एक्विजिशंस करें और अपना एम्पायर बिल्ड करते हैं, और फिर इवेंचुअली आप जो है वो लोकल मार्केट में.
Please don't tell State Bank that. That's illegal for me to hold my profits outside. उनको बताइएगा.
I didn't want to get into it, but Khurram raised a point, and I don't think he realizes कि अगर आपके वहाँ पे भी company है, the revenue generated from there, and if it is not actually transferred back to Pakistan, remitted back to Pakistan, you run into a problem with the State Bank. So hence, even using UAE as the hub to invest somewhere is not that easy and straightforward. So Aezaz knows this far better than any one of us, because he's been struggling with it for the last God knows how many years.
So, you know, Khurram, the impediments, and Nadeem, you also, the impediments are primarily the infrastructure. So there's the regulatory framework. There is also lack of IT industry grows with venture fund. I think you also mentioned this, and one other speaker came on half an hour ago was talking about it. And venture funds are very restricted and very limited here. They are coming in, and that is very encouraging. Private equity bhi aa rahi hai, venture fund bhi aa raha hai, but it's in a very limited manner. मैं आपको बताऊं कि systems limited till our recent success in after listing, हमें तो कोई बैंक एक धेला भी नहीं दे सकता था, देता ही नहीं था, हमें understand ही नहीं कर सकते कि, because we didn't have any cotton to lend against, we didn't have any machinery to lend against. तो at maximum हमने एक दो दफा कुछ equipment lease कराई है. But our major investment goes into कि जी मैंने expand करना है next year, मुझे 500 बंदा आज hire करना है, उनको 6 महीने train करना है, फिर उनको पख लगा के चलाना है और उसके बाद वो billable होंगे. उसमें कोई there's nobody willing to invest in that.
Assalamu alaikum, sir. Dr. Nagina from BUITEMS and one of the awardee of PIDE Rasta project. Sir, first of all, I would like to appreciate your productive session, and I want to ask about one of the major problem of youth job creation. Or as per your own experience, what is your instance about employability? And my question is, what are the reasons of low employability and how can be employability improved? Thank you, sir.
You know, I've just said this, Dr. Nagina, that I don't think that there is that low employability. You just need to invest on those people. And the low employability, the employability can be improved basically by the educational institutions. They are the ones who will ensure, and they can only do this if they can understand what do employers want, what is employable. I go back to this was at a time when education level was very high in Pakistan when I graduated, and it was at a very good college, Lahore College, for Foreman Christian College. And my maths teacher, just that year, they introduced matrix algebra. So मैंने उससे पूछा जी इससे what is this for? So he said, oh, this is part of your maths, don't worry about it. एक ही सवाल आएगा इसमें.
Assalamu alaikum. I am Usama Jit from University College of BUITEMS. I am the student of 7th semester Management Sciences. सर मेरा सवाल ये है कि अगर कोई स्टूडेंट एंटरप्रेन्योर बनना चाहता है तो ऑनलाइन पेमेंट सिस्टम जो है पाकिस्तान में थोड़ा सा वीक है आई थिंक. जैसे पेपाल हो गया, पेपाल पाकिस्तान में नहीं है अवेलेबल. और हम लोग अगर ऑनलाइन जैसे अमेज़न हो गया या इसी तरह ईबे पे काम करना चाहते हैं तो काफी लोग कहते हैं कि पेपाल आपके पास होगा आई थिंक. तो पेपाल हमारे पास नहीं होता है और इसी तरह से हम लोग फिर अगर दूसरा पेमेंट सिस्टम मतलब एडॉप्ट करते हैं तो हम लोगों को काफी टैक्स देना पड़ता है उस पर. तो इस पर आपका क्या मतलब ख्याल है?
उसामा, देखिए पेमेंट सिस्टम्स तो हैं पाकिस्तान में अभी, आज से 5 साल पहले बिल्कुल नहीं थे, बट अब तो दे हैव देम. पेपैल तो यहाँ पे नहीं आ सकता. we keep asking, but local PayPal एक बन सकता है, and there are plenty of them. आपका ये कहना है कि जी मैं बिजनेस करना चाहता हूँ मगर टैक्स नहीं देना चाहता हूँ, ये मेरी समझ से बाहर है. अगर आप प्रॉफिट बना रहे हैं तो उस पर टैक्स तो देना पड़ेगा और देना भी चाहिए. and you know your success is based on how much tax you're paying. So उससे आपको अवॉइड नहीं करना चाहिए. But I agree with you, इतने ज्यादा नहीं है. बट पेमेंट सिस्टम्स हैं, कुछ ये टेलकोज ने इंट्रोड्यूस किए हुए हैं और बहुत सारे आ रहे हैं मार्केट में. फाइनेंशियल इंक्लूजन इज अ ह्यूज एरिया व्हिच इज अ प्रॉब्लम इन दिस कंट्री. बैंक अकाउंट्स सिर्फ 12-13% ऑफ द पीपल हैव देम. The rest are not part of the whole financial sector of this country. They all deal in a cash economy, which is not good, and they primarily deal in a cash economy because they don't want the tax people to know what they're doing, and that I don't agree with. आप टैक्स एग्जेम्पशन ले लें, आप जो भी बिजनेस कर रहे हैं आप जाएं गवर्नमेंट को कहें कि जी मुझे एट सर्टेन लेवल पे टैक्स एग्जेम्पशन दें, आप मुझे उसके बाद जाके टैक्स लगाएं. बट टू से कि जी मुझे टैक्स देना ही नहीं है, दैट इज नॉट एक्सेप्टेबल.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Taimur from University of Turbat. 8th semester student of economics department. Sir, my question is, what you suggest the institutes to be more capable of and to improve their students to be more capable and skilled in new globalization era, and what should be the role of the institutes to develop or skill the fifth populated countries to develop their human capital?
देखिए, अभी तक गवर्नमेंट के पास तो असल चैलेंज है लिटरेसी को पहले पूरा करने, बिकॉज आप प्रोडक्टिविटी की जब बात करते हैं, the productivity theory says that for every year that you go into school, no matter what you're doing, whether you're digging earth or breaking stones or constructing a building or you're a labor, for every year you go to school, your productivity goes up by 2%. So जो तो कॉलेज में आप लोग हो वो तो बड़े स्पेशल हो, you know, in this country that's a very, very small percentage. और उनकी प्रोडक्टिविटी बढ़ाने के लिए it's your own effort. No government, no institution. I mean, you got to have this mindset. I've got to be more productive. What am I going to do? I've got to get a better job. Aajkal productivity is measured by, you know, this. Today they even measure that how many hours do I have to work to earn 1 share of milk or 2 share of ghee. What is my productivity level? कि मैं अगर अपने बच्चों के लिए मैंने 5 किलोग्राम आटा लाना है रोज का, तो मुझे कितने घंटे काम करने पड़ते हैं to earn that 5 kilogram? It has to start from that level. You got to think productively. When you're sitting in a university, you got to think that I'm spending time, I'm paying fees to this university. What am I getting out of this? Your professor has to think that way. Yeah, unfortunately, अब ये क्योंकि a lot of them are government organization में वो level of engagement of either the people who they are servicing or the people who are doing that service वो नहीं है, and we have to create that. ये हमारी demand है. ये आपको आके कोई minister या MNA या ये कोई नहीं करेगा.
Assalamu alaikum, sir. I am from BUITEMS here from economics 3rd semester. Sir, my question is the innovation in physical inputs is enough to maximize the productivity, because we are very lacking in the tangible inputs like the knowledge about those capitals that we have. Is it enough that we to innovate only the physical inputs in our industries?
Well, I don't understand your question. I'm sorry, if you could be a little more.
Physical innovations हो सकती हैं, हम वही कर सकते हैं. We can't do more intellectual digital innovations. वो तो हमारी domain में ही है.
देखिए, innovation is not about inventing things. Innovation is coming up with the process or a way of doing something more productively or more profitably than the other people are doing it at the moment. Whether it is, you know, supplying building material or growing wheat or anything else, innovation is how you do that. Innovation is how much water do you use to get a higher yield in your crop. That is where innovation comes in, and education is the engine for that innovation. Your ability to read and write, your ability to access information is what you get when you go to a college or a university. Now it is up to you कि उस ability को आप कैसे use करेंगे to create that innovation. Innovation is not just invention. Invention is a totally separate thing. Innovation is that you're doing an activity which others are doing, but you're doing it better. And therefore people will come to you, and therefore you will be more successful.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Samiullah Khan. I am faculty member at Department of Economics. अक्सर यहाँ पर देखा जाता है हमारी जो कॉमन बिजनेसेस हैं उसमें देखा जाता है कि अगर आपका कोई एम्प्लॉय है वो भी एक मिनी एंटरप्रेन्योर बनना चाहता है, वो भी कोई और बिजनेस ओपन करना चाहता है, तो उनके जो सीईओज होते हैं या उनके जो हेड होते हैं वो उनको बड़े डिस्करेज करते हैं. हालांकि उनको इनकरेज करना चाहिए. इवन अगर वो ज़्यादा प्रोडक्टिव होते हैं तो आपकी कंपनी के लिए बड़ी अजीब कंपटीशन बन जाती है. तो एज अ सीईओ आपका क्या स्टांस होगा, या अगर आपका एम्प्लॉय मजीद इसी तरह का एक मिनी बिजनेस ओपन करना चाहता हो, आप क्या उनको किस तरह इनकरेज कर सकते हैं, या आपकी क्या पॉलिसी होगी उस पर? थैंक यू।
देखिए, पहले तो जिस बंदे को मैं अपने शेयर्स देता हूं कंपनी के, वो वैसे ही एंटरप्रेन्योर बन जाता है, he becomes a normal and therefore he runs his part of it. But I tell you, because we were the first software company in this country, out of the next 10, 6 were started by people who left us and started it, and we didn't stop them. Some of them became collaborators, some of them became partners. They also created employment, and we were very rarely competing with each other. So you have to play. There's a certain role you have to play in the growth of your industry, and you can't hold people back. If somebody is doing it, it can't be effective. Agar aapka koi employee, he has a better way of doing what you're doing. He may have learned from you primarily, and he goes and does it better. All the more power to that person. Usko khareedne ki koshish karo if you want, if you really need it. We have the whole world to compete with, Samiullah Khan Sahab. We don't have to compete with each other.
Aezaz sahab, good to see you. Harun Sharif here. Very quickly, I'm spending a lot of time in the region. What I see कि अगले 5 साल में China is going to make a lot of investment in technology. और जो West है, उसकी economies जो हैं वो temporarily shrink भी कर रही हैं और उनकी investment levels कम हो रहे हैं. Now, Pakistan and China पे सवाल ये है कि are you looking at the Asian markets like China and others in future? If yes, how can, there's a language barrier and other things, one could collaborate with them? क्योंकि investment तो definitely आ रही है, और अगर आप President Xi की 5 points देखें, in fact, modernization and technology, second and third priority China की बन रही है.
China में जी हमारा ability to compete with the domestic companies there is very low because of the barriers that they have created. Language is not just one barrier. Pakistani को तो वहाँ visit का visa नहीं मिलता, tourist visa नहीं मिलता. I have to go there for a business purpose. Otherwise, they won't even let me in. हमारे हैं तो deeper than the deepest sea and higher than the highest mountain, दोस्त तो हैं, but वो हमें हमारी entry वहाँ पे बड़ी मुश्किल है. But China has a huge area. We compete with them. We compete with their organizations in the APAC region, in Africa, in Middle East. वो तो है. उनका जो competition West के साथ है, we are too small to get involved in that fight. But उनका competition at a different level है. They draw a lot of strength from the West in terms of knowledge. The West is still, in terms of the investment that they have made in their universities, the investments that they've made in their knowledge centers is so huge, particularly the US, कि उसके साथ किसी को भी compete करना मुश्किल नहीं है. और US ने उसको बंद नहीं किया होगा. अभी भी हजारों, tens of thousands of Chinese students go to the US, and that's where they learn, and that's the strength of that economy. The difference between them and ours is कि वो वापस आ जाते हैं, they strengthen their economy. हमारे लोग जो हैं वो पाकिस्तान में उनकी बिलीफ जरा लो है, बट अब थोड़ा सा चेंज हो रहा है. वो द कॉन्सेप्ट ऑफ वापस्तानी जिसको हम कहते हैं, जो पाकिस्तानी वापस आने शुरू हुए हैं, वो थोड़ा इनकरेजिंग हो रहा है. So whether this because they can't stay on, or whether this is the love of this country, but we are having a lot more Wapistanis coming back and contributing to our economy, which will be the real strength.
Aezaz, last question.
I just want to make.
You want to say something?
2, 3.
Speaks here. He speaks.
2, 3 comments and of course support. I, like Nadeem, are extremely skeptical of what the foundations that we are laying in the universities. I'm obviously encouraged by your perception and your feeling, and of course your own experience. KG training ke through the effort, and all such people are employable. I wish that were to be true. Partly, of course, the problem is the growth rate of the economy being what it is. Just to reinforce this point about innovation that you said before I come to the last quick one. Innovation, aap bilkul theek keh rahe hain. I mean, at the end of the day, all the ingredients are there. Innovation is what? Agar ek anda pada aur doodh pada ho, so I would probably end up making a scrambled egg, whereas you would make a souffle. So that's the innovation where the value add comes. I'm trying to put it very simply that the ingredients alone, how you use them. What our productivity ki baat kar rahe hain, and I just want to emphasize on the public sector side, and I suspect Nadeem will agree with me, part of the problem, productivity is much more a marginal concept. हमारे यहाँ जो लोगों की promotion होनी on the basis of seniority, for them to understand productivity, performance, frankly, I do not know how you do that in the public sector. क्योंकि वो जो आपने बुनियादी बात की कि मुझे नहीं पता कि कैसे होगा, so I keep asking myself, because that's a marginal concept. People are going to be promoted on the basis of seniority. Performance, productivity really doesn't count for anything in that system of the public sector.
That's true, Shahid. That is true. But unfortunately, I personally don't have any answer to that. I mean, other governments have figured it out. One, they stay away from things which require productivity. And second, they have a huge decentralization. Local government is, I think, to my mind, theoretically the only answer to improve productivity of government service.
Question, we're running out of time. Very last question. Quickly, you've talked about the state bank and the impediment that you faced there. If you were perchance, just asked to define the regulatory system for this country to make it go forward so that we can have the Infosys systems could become the Infosys and we could have billion-dollar companies, contrary to what people think. We economists want you guys to grow. We want to have billion-dollar companies. Yesterday, we were talking to Engro. Engro is about the same size as you. So Engro is a 70-year-old company, Daud Hercules, etc. It's the same size as you. Lucky we're having Tabba after you about the same size too. What would you propose the government to do to take Pakistan into the 21st century? But related to that, I also want to throw this on the table. I know time is short. You know all the industrialists in Pakistan. What is stopping them from growing? And especially, I ask you, you've given us a very nice model of employee ownership, of kind of a participatory ownership, professional management, etc. What is stopping our big companies, who you're a member of now, from developing professional management? Because I don't see professional management anywhere in Pakistan.
Well, your second question first, Nadeem. I believe that our inherent feudal DNA, which has been ingrained in us, will never allow us to sort of get out of this mindset, which would allow us to share ownership and have the employee ownership and employee empowerment. Companies die, but they never share they don't even do mergers and acquisitions. So it's a cultural problem. There's no structural issue here. But the first question is the more important one. I mean, this country has to decide, and you economists have to guide us into deciding that are we going to be a free market country or not? Or are we going to be a regulated one, and a heavily regulated one? If you're regulated, then you don't have the creations of the Infosys, etc. These organizations are not just big like IBM and Microsoft. These are organizations in perpetuity. The last Watson to manage IBM, who was the son of the founder, was 75 years ago. There's never been a Watson in the management of IBM. Bill Gates he's not even given 1% of his share to his children, and none of them are in the management of that company. So those are perpetual organizations. Their lack of innovation might kill them, but they will not die because a certain generation has retired or the next generation is not clear enough. I feel very confident, and I feel that the kind of energy that the second generation of leadership which has brought into systems, I could never have done that. Shahid and myself, we were the earlier generation. This industry, this business needs energy which only people at half my age can provide. And we are managing this company. And I'm hoping that I've ingrained enough of the DNA in them that when they get to my level, they would have passed it on to people half their age.
Thank you. Always a pleasure. Ladies and gentlemen, let me also tell you, last year we had, if you recall, Aezaz's class fellow, Atiq Raza, and he also gave us a very, very stimulating conversation, except Aezaz, he wasn't very upbeat on Pakistan. You are a little more upbeat on Pakistan.
I'm very upbeat, very upbeat.
Very upbeat, okay. I'll hold you to it, inshallah. Thank you very much, Aezaz. This has been a wonderful talk. This is what I expected. I want people to learn about this. Briefly, before you go, how can we help Balochistan? Since you have Baloch roots too, or linkages, how can we help?
I don't have Baloch roots as such. I've lived there. I love the place. But I don't want to make a political statement, but the fact that I couldn't get a flight which would bring me back the next day shows the level of integration that Balochistan has with the rest of the country. I can fly to Karachi and come back in the evening. I can fly to Islamabad and come back in the evening. I can do this with Multan also, but I can't do it with Quetta. I suppose the decision makers on this issue have their own planes, so they are not concerned with this. But this is a very clear statement.
Thank you, Aezaz. Thank you very much. Inshallah, we'll see you soon. Big hand.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Khuda Hafiz.
Khuda Hafiz.